One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Guys, we've been treated to 4 fantastic weeks of college football, and guess what? It gets even better. We've got the legendary slate that is week 5 in front of us. We're here to preview just about every single one of the games. Our run sheet is like 20 pages long. It feels like the notes took a long time to put together, but it's a labor of love. And with that, guys, I'm doing fantastic. I have to imagine you are as well.
Yeah, I mean, these are the weeks why we started a podcast, right? This is why we do this. This is why we put in all the effort in the summer to do preview season. This is why we stay up late on Saturday nights. It's 4 weeks like this because this is what makes the sport great. There are so many storylines, so many games to get to. There's some that we're going to have to cut for time and probably circle back to on Saturday night or maybe even next week on the preview show, jumping back on because, I mean, storylines abound this week. It made it very, very hard to cut a run sheet.
Yeah, when your game of the week is the entire first page of your show doc, you've done something correct, and we have something a lot of fun. So I'm pumped about this. I'm kind of shocked that we got it in under 20 pages. I mean, it's a lot of notes and it's a lot of games.
Well, and it was a lot of deep research as well, because the number one thing that I noticed as we were writing down lines and putting together notes, there are a lot of close games that are expected from top to bottom, whether you're talking about Whiteout at Penn State or you're going all the way down to a Sun Belt game, an American Conference game. Like, there weren't just a lot of obvious lines. And so, we left off with the week 4 recap, the theme being that contenders had started to emerge. And now you're having those contenders that have great data points. Well, now we've got good on good. We've got teams that are going to put their best shot against somebody else's best shot. And we're going to have playoff spots or teams eliminated from playoff spots, not necessarily just because of this week. Although, hey, Notre Dame, how you feeling about going to Fayetteville? But there are going to be a lot of things that the committee takes into account starting with this week, as we get a number of ranked matchups, as we get a number of top teams and power conferences playing each other. Week 5 is going to be one of those hallmark weeks, I think, for the 2025 season. And we've got a lot to get into. So I think let's go ahead and start at the very top with the Whiteout in Penn State. This is a game that we have been talking about since well into the summer. We've been, Trey, you predicted that this was going to be the Whiteout game on our road trip episode months ago. I've got to imagine that seeing that hope, that dream come to fruition, we get it under the lights as Oregon goes on the road to Happy Valley. Penn State's a 3.5-point favorite, 6:30 p.m., the NBC primetime game. Trey, I'll just kick it to you. Like, I've got to feel like if anybody out of the three of us has the warm fuzzies, they've got to be kind of overflowing at Casa de Reeves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I said week 5 is why we do this show, but this is what college football is all about. A night Whiteout game in Happy Valley, a big-time opponent coming to town. Maybe the country at large not believing in Penn State. This just feels like a Disney movie, right? It feels like if you were making a college football Disney movie, this would be the backdrop. And I couldn't be more excited to get this. Can't remember the last time we got a night game for Whiteout. Feels like Fox screws us out of that every single year. And thankfully, we had some network executives at NBC that said, no, we are taking this game in our network draft, and we are going to make sure that this gets the coverage that it deserves. So I'm all for it. I can't wait to sit back and watch this one. And there's some other primetime games that's going to have to share some screen time with, unfortunately. Yeah. But at least we get a Whiteout game at night. I couldn't be more excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, our big three was, when you have two games in the nighttime window, the third one kind of leads right into that ABC primetime game. It was always going to be tough to whittle these down, but Oregon at Penn State, objectively, I think the biggest game going. And we have to do a little bit of obligatory record setting here, right? Just to get this out of the way, we can decide how much we want to lean into this narrative or not. I know it is going to be repeated verbatim this week, so bear with me if you have already heard this. If this is not the first preview that you've watched this week, James Franklin is 4-20 in top 10 games across his career, right? We know that. That is a fact that gets brought up every single time Penn State takes on a team with a little number next to it. He's 8-3, though, in whiteout games. And while I'll grant you have to go back to 2016 to find their last win over a top 5 team in a whiteout game. That was a crazy win over Ohio State. There are some good vibes that generally come out when Penn State leans into it, when Happy Valley comes alive. And maybe Oregon is one of those programs that's built and coached to handle that environment. But you do have that dichotomy of big game James Franklin versus his objective success in whiteout games. So the other thing that I'll set the stage with, you have an absurdly high efficiency offense coming to town in Oregon, right? This is what Penn State's defense is supposed to be built to stop. When you brought Jim Knowles over, you brought him over to stop the Oregon Ducks, who come into town averaging nearly 51 points per game. Have they put that up against some questionable opponents? Yes, absolutely. But I think the proof of concept is there, that the Oregon offense, when fully operational, is going to put up all the points, whether or not Evan Stewart is healthy. So with that as the stage, a great offense, a great defense, stars on both sides. Trey, I'll kick it to you. Which way are you leaning with, again, the line set at 3.5 in favor of the Nittany Lions?
I think this is another situation we've talked about the last few weeks on the show where there's just so many games early in the year that are big-time names, big-time brands, teams that we're pretty sure are elite, but we just haven't seen it against another quote-unquote elite or even pretty good team yet. So there's really not a lot I can trust in this one. I can't trust James Franklin in a big game. I don't know that I can trust Dan Lanning in a big-time spot. I know he went 13-0 in the regular season last year, but you saw what happened in the postseason. He hasn't exactly shaken the big game allegations fully from his ledger yet. I don't know that I can trust this Oregon offense. All these pieces have looked fantastic, but it's been at home against pasties, guys. It hasn't been against the best competition. They haven't exactly gone out and given me a proof of concept in an environment like they're going to face. So I got to look for things that I can, and what I think I can trust is Penn State running the football and playing good defense in front of a raucous home crowd. As crazy as it sounds, I think I'm going to take Penn State minus 3.5. I was kind of surprised by that line. I'm going to lean into it. Penn State can run the heck out of the football. They did it against Oregon last year. They ran for almost 300 yards against the Ducks in Indy in the Big Ten championship game last year. Oregon hasn't exactly looked great stopping the run. I know they did against their lesser non-Power 5 opponents. Against Northwestern, they were allowing almost 5 yards per carry in that sloppy makeshift Rector Set Stadium on the banks of Lake Michigan a couple weeks ago. So not exactly balling out, stopping the run when they've had to step out of non-conference play and into Big Ten play. Penn State, we know, is going to have two of the best offensive players on the field in their running back core of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. I think they can rely on that, but to make sure that I really get that, I need to see more from the receivers. I need to see them work in that play action game. It's time for Traver Pena. It's time for Devontae Ross to get more involved into this offense. And hopefully we get to see that this week. Part of my pick is kind of banking on they've been holding something back because it hasn't always looked pretty the first 3 weeks. But I'm going to roll with the run game. I'm going to roll with the defense, roll with the home crowd, and shockingly take Penn State to cover in this one.
That is one question that I have about this game offensively for Penn State is, yes, they've, destroyed Kent State and Villanova and shut out Florida International. But with Andy Kotelnicki as your offensive coordinator, I just continue to feel like the offense is so bland. Drew Aller is not being asked to throw down the field hardly at all. And their wide receivers, when they've needed to go make catches, have. They're getting that separation because this is a much more explosive wide receiver core. But to your point, now is the time for the rubber to meet the road. I want to see that for Penn State to truly ascend to the throne that is not only a national championship contender, but I think a national championship favorite when everything is clicking. Couple items going in your favor, Trey. Penn State has 9 sacks so far through the season. That's one of the best marks in the country. Oregon has only allowed 1, but as I was looking through some of Oregon's past film and looking for some opinions from their beat writers, some Penn State beat writers as well, the tackles do seem to be a little bit susceptible. Isaiah World was one that I saw kind of thrown out there, had some not great reps against Oklahoma State, against Northwestern, didn't give up a sack, the 6'9" left tackle transfer from Nevada, I believe. And he has some moments where he's just the Stonewall of China and nobody's getting past him. And he also has a moment against, I can't remember if it was Idaho State, whichever their FCS opponent. It's like a 220-pound defensive end that just pushes him back into last week, into the lap of Dante Moore. So you've got Penn State who can get after it, and they've got multiple different pass rushers. I think that is one thing that goes in favor of the Penn State Nittany Lions. But that being said, Garrett, I think I know where you stand here. You've been the highest out of all of us on the Oregon Ducks. Trey's right. That line seems a little bit high, maybe, for the closeness that I think both of these teams could play in an elite environment. Are you taking the Ducks or the Nittany Lions with that interesting number?
I'm going to take Oregon outright in this game. I think Oregon wins this football game and makes a huge statement. I mean, you said it. I've been the Oregon defender so far, and it seems like I've almost been on an island this offseason, right? It seemed like a lot of the offseason was talking about how you lost your quarterback, and Dante Moore was, he was just going to be a guy who looked just like he was at UCLA, right? The guy that was lost out there, didn't know what he was doing, and nothing could be farther from the truth at this point with Oregon. He has absolutely recreated himself. He has dedicated himself to making himself the quarterback that he needed to be, to the tune of 74% completions, 11 touchdowns, and only 1 interception in the early going. And this is, again, like, the competition level hasn't been fantastic, but it looks like a fine-tuned machine. They got 2 running backs averaging over 11 yards per carry right now. They're a very good offense. DeCorian Moore has been an absolute threat out there. I did say, a couple weeks ago, I wanted to see them have a second guy emerge, and I do think that's going to be critical. They need another pass-catching option besides DeCorian Moore. But with all of that said, I think a lot was made this offseason of the Big Ten quarterbacks, right? And we talked about who was going to make the differences and who was going to be the guy that you can rely on, and that was how we ended up picking apart a lot of these really good rosters, but just said, which guy can you depend on the most? And so far to this season, I think I'm a little bit vindicated on my Drew Aller takes, that I just don't see him being that big play threat down the field. He's crazy efficient. He's extremely good at what they're asking him to do. He just hasn't been a dynamic quarterback who's shown that he can really make a difference in this type of a game, right? When you have the best against the best, and you've got your guys against their guys, and it's a bunch of 5-stars running around the field, I just haven't seen that he can be that guy to this point in his career that can really make the difference, put up the big numbers, and if you need him to drive down the field, win that final drive of the game to put you over the top. And so in this game, it's a whiteout. That's going to be crazy. I'm not underestimating what Penn State is going to do with their home field. That is not at all what I'm doubting. But what I will doubt here is ultimately Drew Aller's ability to be the difference maker in this game. Right now, it's weird to say it. I didn't quite think I'd be coming out here and saying it, but I trust Dante Moore to make a play, to connect with DeCorian Moore, to connect with somebody down the field, hit a big play when you really need him to keep things going for the Ducks. And so, look, I think both defenses are fantastic. I think they're both going to be really good, Penn State's especially. But right now, if you ask me who's going to be able to keep some pressure off the run game, who's going to be able to get some of those safeties to scoot back a little bit so that the run game can excel, right now I'm going to lean towards Oregon doing that. I think that they get just a little bit more consistency, and I think their defense clamps down just a little bit more. I'm going to pick the Ducks to win this one to the tune of like 27-20, give it a touchdown late to just ice this one and let the Ducks get out of here with a big statement victory and maybe catapult themselves into that like top 2 or 3 teams kind of range.
I've got good news for you on the wide receiver front. Malik Benson is just 6 yards behind De'Corian Moore in total yards receiving, 201. They've got one of the best tight ends in the country, supposedly, in Kenyon Sadiq, who they haven't asked their pass catchers to do quite a bit because they've been blowing teams out. So they've been rotating a lot of guys in. But Sadiq's a guy that's flashed. And then don't forget about Gary Bryant Jr., the USC transfer, who's up there as well. I'm going to take Oregon plus the 3.5 as well. And there's a couple reasons why. Number one, Penn State's already 0-3 against the spread this season. And it feels like a razor thin margin to me. So giving any sort of boost or cushion to a very talented Oregon Ducks team, despite the environment, I'm going to lean into that number. Oregon's also as dual threat of an offense as you can get. And the highlights have come through the air when they've been blowing out Oklahoma State or taking down Northwestern on the road. A lot of the time you've seen NBC or ESPN flash a nice pass to De'Corian Moore, to Kenyon Sadiq, whoever. But the offense has actually been mostly going on the ground. Garrett, you mentioned 2 running backs that are averaging a boatload of yards per carry. They have 3 running backs that already have over 150 yards. It's been kind of a true running back by committee approach. And knowing Noah Whittington has not gotten the majority of the carries so far. So I think it's a balanced team. They're 10th in the country on the ground. Penn State, we know, is going to get theirs. They've got 8 touchdowns between Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. So I expect that that's where a lot of their offense is going to come. But when I had to make a decision, I'm more disappointed, I think, in what I've seen from Kotelnicki and what they've asked Aller to do. But Aller's going to have to throw the ball into some tight windows, right? He has to step up and make a big throw. The problem is Oregon has been one of the top teams in the country at defending those tight windows this season. They're 15th in the nation in passes defended. If you're telling me that both teams are probably going to get theirs on the ground at some point, I think the defense is what highlights this game for both teams. Somebody's got to make a throw. Somebody has to stretch the field at a critical moment in the game. And guys, as weird as that sounds after the preseason and the questions that we had about Dante Moore coming in, he has looked like an NFL quarterback through these first couple of weeks. The throws that I've seen him make in the tight windows already have certainly impressed me and given me more hope than what I've seen Aller be asked to do. To me, it feels like Dante Moore and this Oregon team may actually be built to go on the road and win a big game. I didn't even mention the linebacking core. That could be the top linebacking core in the country. Maybe they make a big third down stop. I think it's close. I think it's a razor thin margin, but give me the Ducks in this one. I'll go 24-21. Oregon sends James Franklin down to 4-21 in top 10 games, which at that point, I just don't know. I don't know what the conversation is Saturday night. Maybe we'll just leave that pontification for the live show. But let us know. Write in. Oregon, Penn State, which side are you riding? Do you think that line, 3.5, is a little funny? We would love to have you join the conversation. Guys, let's go to our next game, the afternoon window on ABC that will lead into the evening. And we've got a amazing appetizer. If Georgia, Alabama is the main dish, the main card, the undercard's pretty good too. LSU at Ole Miss, the Rebs, 2.5-point favorites at home on ABC. Guys, this opened at LSU minus a point and the hook. And the public said, no, absolutely not. We're not trusting Brian Kelly to go on the road, to go into Ole Miss, and what seems to be a very complete team in the Rebs so far. Now, the first question with this game, guys, and I put this out on Twitter, I think Trinidad Chambliss, QB2, the transfer from Ferris State, I think whether or not Austin Simmons is healthy, I think he's got to be the starter.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm with you on that. Trinidad Chambliss has come in and balled out the last couple weeks, ready when his number was called. And one of those was against a really solid Tulane team, a team that I had ranked in my top 25 poll in the All Podcasters poll that we put out. So I was high on Tulane. They dismembered Tulane last week, and Trinidad Chambliss was a big part of that. The defense was a big part of it as well. But Trinidad Chambliss, using his arm, using his legs, he's been kind of a revelation for an offense that was not doing great early on with Austin Simmons running the show. And he was having some turnover problems. They were kind of stuck in first gear against Kentucky with Austin Simmons. Trinidad Chambliss has looked like the real deal.
I mean, to that point, I was listening to a preview earlier today where they were asking, does Ole Miss have a quarterback controversy. And I was like, emphatically, no, it's got to be Chambliss. He's the guy. Like, I don't know. I don't think that there's actually really a controversy here because, I mean, have you seen the offense when he's running the show? I mean, yeah, maybe the defenses haven't been the best that he's faced, but he's putting up crazy video game numbers.
He's been very efficient so far, not only doing it through the air, but almost 200 yards on the ground as well. And I know a lot of coaches will say that you can't lose your job to injury, that you're going to get it once you come back and you're healthy. But we're also talking about a 19-year-old quarterback who's starting for the first time in his career in Austin Simmons, and a guy that's played a lot of football at objectively a lower level in Ferris State, but he's won at every level that he's played at so far. The offense just has, I think, an undeniable spark with Trinidad under center. And so for me, if you've got LSU coming in, a team with so far an elite defense, you're going to need every edge, I think, that you can find. And for me, Trinidad's that guy. Now, Trey, one concern that I do have about Ole Miss is I think LSU kind of comfortably wins the battle in the trenches. Ole Miss is one of the worst teams in the country so far this season at actually getting to the quarterback. The recipe for success against Garrett Nussmeier seems to be pressuring him off his spot and being able to stop the run, something that LSU has really not had a part of their offense so far, right? I mean, Brian Kelly's getting asked to start press conferences, hey, man, why can't we run the football? I feel like Ole Miss has to find a way to make LSU one-dimensional if they want to win at home.
And to be frank, though, LSU has done a great job of making themselves one-dimensional for the first part of this year. I have not been impressed with LSU's offense and Ole Miss's defense. I know they lost a ton of guys. I was really worried about that coming in. Against the schedule they played so far, I feel like that's the caveat we got to say about almost all these teams. But against the schedule they played so far, they've looked really, really good, including that Tulane game that I mentioned earlier. So I'm not that concerned about or Ole Miss, I should say, generating pressure because LSU's not done a great job of keeping opposing defenders out of the backfield, either on passing downs or running downs when they're trying to set up the run. LSU has not done a good job for 2 years now of staying out of being one-dimensional. So I'm worried about that. I don't know what this offense looks like when there's not a dynamic running quarterback for LSU, because that's been a problem since Garrett Nussmeier took over. Has it not?
It has.
So, I mean, I'm looking at this offense. I'm looking at it struggling to get out of first gear. And it's hard for me to not look at this and not take Ole Miss minus the points at home. I don't trust Brian Kelly on the road. I don't trust this offense from what they've shown me so far this year. And Ole Miss, I'm willing to be wrong on them. They've looked like one of the better teams in the SEC to this point in the year. Adjusted for the talent that they've been playing against, adjusted for their schedule. Now, the one thing, guys, I don't know if we want to get into this yet, but there is a little love story brewing on the sidelines that I don't know if that's an intentional one or if that's, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but is it sabotage?
That's Lane Kiffin pulling out all the stops.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Putting it all out there, trying to do anything you can to win the game. You got to respect it at a certain point.
For the uninitiated, Lane's, I don't know if he has multiple daughters. His oldest daughter, Landry, just went public on Instagram that she is dating Whit Weeks, star linebacker of the LSU Tigers. The timing is nothing short of hysterical, given it's game week against the Tigers. Listen, congrats to the happy couple. Wish them nothing but the best. But the timing's weird, and for that to be even a joke around the LSU locker room, it's not helping, that's for sure. Certainly an interesting card to be played by the mafia family that is the Kiffins.
If Carrie Underwood's songs are to be believed, guys, it's a big distraction. Like, you could lose your free ride to college because of a girl that's distracting you from practice.
That's a crazy deep cut, but I love it. I'm all here for it.
That is a deep cut. Guys, I'm on Ole Miss as well, minus the points. The biggest question I have in this game is Ole Miss's defense, and I've alluded to that already. But you combine Brian Kelly's history of struggles on the road and an offense specifically that underperforms on the road. And I'm supposed to assume that LSU has a get-right week on the road in the Grove, where Lane Kiffin has actually been fairly good in his career. I believe he's 7-4, I want to say, in his career against ranked teams in the Grove. Can't find that note in my writing right now, but I think that Kiffin will draw up enough offensively to be able to get one or two over on Blake Baker, which LSU's defense has improved dramatically, and credit to them. But I have not seen the support from that offense. Caden Durham turned an ankle, I believe, this last week against Southeastern, so I don't know if he's going to be fully healthy. The running game hasn't been good outside of him anyway. I think LSU is probably the more talented team, but this just seems like a bad situation for them. And you throw on top of the fact that Ole Miss is once again the top team in the country in 20 plus and 30 plus yard plays from scrimmage. This just does not feel like a comfortable situation for the LSU Tigers. So I'll back the Rebs.
Yeah, I think I'm not super high on Ole Miss anyways, but I am going to pick them to win this game because I think LSU's been a little bit of fool's gold so far. I don't think that LSU's maybe quite as good as they're getting credit for right now in the media. And I get it because we all watched them beat Clemson first week of the season and we thought, wow, this is one of the best teams in the country. Just look at that defense. Did you see what Syracuse just did to them? I'm not sure that was quite as good of a win as they thought. It was a gritty win for Georgia Tech to beat Clemson. I give you that much, but I'm not quite sure that holding Clemson's offense down is necessarily a Herculean effort at this point. And we've seen them not quite pull away from like the littler teams on their schedule. And even look, their bigger win is also a win against a very bad Florida team where they threw 5 picks, but kind of digging into that a little bit, they gave up 287 passing yards to Florida. Miami only gave up 61 to them last week. So I'm kind of looking at this like, okay, I'm not quite sure you are what you say that you are, or you think that you are. I definitely think the defense is good. Like, I'm not saying that they're a bad defense in disguise. They're about to get exposed because you can't play that level of defense that consistently without being at least good. I just don't think that they're like top of the nation elite type defense. And when you're playing a quarterback like Trinidad Chambliss, I just think that this is a bad recipe for them. I don't think that this is very good for them. I also think that this could be a really bad negative game script type thing where, if Ole Miss goes up 10 points at any point in this game, you can almost put this thing away and kind of, there's no ability to really pin your ears back, get after the quarterback and, add that kind of pressure because you still have to look out for being balanced. And there's just a lot that I think could go wrong for LSU in this one. I'm not completely sold on them as a team right now. So I'm going to take Ole Miss because I think they're the better team right now. And, I'm fully prepared for, Garrett Nussmeier to figure it out because I think that he will at some point this season. I think at some point this season, whether it's his health, whether it's, like a nagging injury type of thing, or if it's just he's not playing very well right now, I think he gets it figured out. I just don't think it's this week.
Clemson and Florida fans have their head in their hands being used as the teams that are measuring quality losses.
I'm so sorry.
Not a position those two fan bases are wanting to be. Certainly, we're all on the Rebs, so congratulations to LSU on a quality road win. Can't wait to break that down on Saturday night. Let's talk about the game on Saturday night. Alabama at Georgia, the perfect SEC slugfest in Week 5. The Georgia Bulldogs, 2.5-point favorites on ABC, the 6:30 game. They're looking for revenge, guys. After Alabama beat them last year at home, they nearly blew them out of the building. The first half was demoralizing, I think is an understatement for the Georgia Bulldogs, but they came back. They found a way to get back into that. There was a very strong chance that they won that and ended up losing it late to some heroics from Milroe and Ryan Williams, etc. But for Alabama, they come in obviously with the loss at Florida State, which is starting to look more and more, I think, like just a Week 1 landmine. An instance where you were not ready to perform, you were not taking Florida State seriously, and it bit you. For Georgia, they seem to have a bad habit of waiting until the second quarter to start playing, right? It takes them a while to turn the engine over, and that's kind of a Kirby Smart staple. It doesn't feel like Georgia starts fast in a lot of these games. They kind of like to play from behind for whatever reason. For this one, though, I'm wondering if Alabama can be Tennessee 2.0. And what I mean by that is if they can get points up early, burning that Georgia secondary like Aguilar did, like that Tennessee offense did, and then hold on for dear life, Tennessee should have won that game. And we're going to talk about the Vols in just a little bit. I'm still very high on what Tennessee can do. Now, there's something to be said for learning how to win and close out tight games. Alabama gets their shot this week to do just that. Ty Simpson, guys, is the key for the Tide here for me. FSU did not look good. But since that loss to Florida State, he is just completing a cool 89% of his passes for 608 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's been nearly flawless. And in a situation where both of these teams have actually been rather pathetic at getting to the quarterback, Simpson is clearly a different guy when he's knocked off his spot, when that offensive line is playing like Swiss cheese. I don't know that we've seen Georgia show the ability to get to the opposing quarterback this season, though, with any sort of regularity. So with that being said, give me the Tide plus the 2.5 going on the road. Alabama's third in passing defense, guys. If they can get stops through the air, and if they can make Georgia one-dimensional, I don't know if the Bulldogs are good enough yet on the ground to win it with the running game. So I'm going to take the Tide outright here. Looking at the SP Plus, they expect Alabama maybe to earn a very slim margin of victory as well. So I'll lean into that and say Kalen DeBoer gets a statement win.
That'd be massive for Kalen DeBoer, and it would get a lot of naysayers off of his back. So that'd be huge. I'm of the opinion that Georgia is very close to being back to juggernaut status. And I think you saw a new dimension of that offense unlocked in that Tennessee game. I didn't think they could win a game like they did against Tennessee. I did not think that this version of Georgia was built to win a shootout. And then Gunnar Stockton unlocked a new level of competency, of just clutch play ability down the stretch in that game. The defense did just enough down the stretch in that game. I was really, really impressed by that Georgia win in Knoxville. Gunnar Stockton, for all the greatness that Ty Simpson has been, I'm almost close to being president of the Ty Simpson fan club. I've been singing his praises all offseason. Y'all know that.
Yep.
Gunnar Stockton is 5th in the nation in QBR, and it's because he's able to do it with his arm. You saw the throws that he was making against Tennessee. He does it with his legs. For as much as I'm concerned about Georgia's pass defense, guys, I'm equally concerned about Alabama's rush defense. Yeah. Haven't exactly seen them fix that just yet. They've obviously done better than they did against Florida State. What happens if Georgia decides to play bully ball just like Florida State did? They have a running quarterback just like Florida State did. This is on the road just like it was against Florida State. I got to see this Alabama defense step up and be ready to man up in another physical man ball game that they haven't had to play the last couple of weeks as the competition level has stepped back down. So you're absolutely right. That Florida State loss is aging well for Alabama, but this could end up being a very similar style of game as that Florida State game very easily. And you're going on the road into a raucous environment, the revenge narrative, like you said. I'm taking Georgia minus the points here. I'm taking Georgia minus 2.5. I think Kirby Smart, obviously the struggles against Alabama have been well documented. 1-6 against Bama in his career. It's been just that last step. Beating Bama consistently is really the last thing that he hasn't accomplished yet in his career. But like I said off the top, I really think this is very close to being a Georgia juggernaut. When their defense decides to show up, it's still elite. Look at the Texas games last year. Look at even the playoff game, keeping them in it against Notre Dame for a long time. When their defense decides to show up, and it typically does at home where they've won 33 straight, it gets ugly for the other team really quickly. These two offenses are matchup nightmares for the opposing defenses, so I am expecting quite a few points in this one, but I think the home crowd, I think Gunnar Stockton making a few plays with his legs, that does just enough for Georgia to get out of here with a huge win.
One note real fast, Garrett, on the run defense specifically, Alabama does get Tim Keenan back this week. Now, hadn't seen any action. He's going to be rusty, I'm sure, but you talk about a key to the run defense, at least that's what the Tide beat writers and fans have been saying all offseason, and so far they do get the guy that they're pinning a lot of their hopes on this week. So something to monitor.
And he gets to try to find his footing against Georgia. That sounds like a great spot.
Congratulations.
Well, Mitch, now that I know that, let me type a couple things because I need to change my pick. No, I'm with Trey on this one. I'm all in on the Dogs. I wouldn't be shocked if Bama wins this one, but I also would be shocked if that defense for Georgia doesn't look miles better. You gave Kirby Smart a bye week after his defense got embarrassed against Tennessee. Like you won, congrats. You kind of got lucky. You're glad that Tennessee decided to shank a punt or a kick to Timbuktu, right? That ball was nowhere close. The apex was already offline. Like it was never had a chance. So in that sense, you could very well be talking about a Georgia defense that got embarrassed and run over by Tennessee in a loss. They're lucky that that's not what the story was. But you gave Kirby Smart 2 weeks to sit here and rip into his players and get in the film room and fix problems. That Georgia defense is too dang good to do that again. I would be shocked in any way, shape, or form if they give up that kind of a performance to another offense again this whole season. So I think that this is going to be kind of a bad spot for Bama here because, look, I need Bama to prove to me that they can be physical against a good team. They just, it wasn't about the play calling. It wasn't about the quarterback. It wasn't about any of that stuff when they played Florida State. They got bullied, right? They got physicaled out of that stadium. They got pushed around. The effort wasn't there. They got completely demoralized. And now they have to go to Athens, where that crowd's going to be crazy. I mean, y'all talked about it, but after what happened last year, do you think those fans are going to come out there with anything less than 100% and crazy passion and screaming and barking and all the other stuff that they do over there? It's going to be a crazy crowd. I just don't like this spot for Bama at all. I think this is one where it could spiral a little bit. Kind of Trey, to your point about the unlocking stuff with, Gunner, when he hit that pass on fourth down to hit that touchdown and kind of get him back in that game, I almost audibly was like, uh-oh, Happy learned how to putt. Like, it became that thing where I think Georgia figured out how to become that offense again where they could do all the different things you needed them to. They've already proved that they can run the football. Now they've got that passing aspect as well. I think Georgia wins this one in a little bit of a statement. I'm not going to call like a complete blowout because I think Alabama's too good and too talented to get completely blown out like that again. But it wouldn't shock me at all if we come on here a little bit early because, this one is wrapped up middle to late fourth quarter. It wouldn't shock me at all if this game wasn't super competitive late. So give me Georgia. I'll give the -2.5 as well. I wouldn't be shocked if they win this one by double digits.
Tell you what, animal rights activists, avert your eyes if the Bulldogs get coming down the tracks because we know that fan base likes to get weird. A win over Alabama would certainly give them a lot of confidence going forward. Talking to the doctor on our staff who's an Alabama grad, he said, like, if we lose this game, okay, probably not that many people expected us to win. He said, man, if we do win, the tide is all the way back and I get to be as obnoxious as I want. It's like, you know what? That's probably pretty fair.
Yeah, like that was going to stop him anyways if he didn't have the excuse, right? That's Bama fans, right? I don't know anything about this guy, but I know Bama fans, and that's what Bama fans do. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Cannot wait to end our night. Trey, I mean, to your point off the top of the show, it's like a shame that we have that in the whiteout going at the same time because each of those games deserves the main screen and have to either throw it into the quad box.
It's almost an excuse to buy a second TV, like just to make sure that you can have a full screen for both games.
Not financial advice there. Please act accordingly. But we would love to know which side of this SEC slugfest you're on. Alabama, Georgia. Write in, drop a comment below in Spotify if you're listening on the app. Guys, let's move to our Saturday storylines. And these storylines, as always, are presented by the good brand, homefieldapparel.com. Use our code 3TechPod for 15% off your entire first order. Gentlemen, we're going to go in chronological order because this is like the most loaded our Saturday storyline segment has been. So we're just going to try and bring a little bit of sense and order to this and let the chips fall where they may. In the morning window, we've got two offerings for you. We've got USC, 7.5-point favorites on the road at Illinois. We've got Duke, 4.5-point favorites on the road at Syracuse. USC beat Michigan State. Congrats in the up all night special of the week. Illinois lost by 53 to a team that was averaging 53 points on Saturday night when they got blown out by the Hoosiers. Their prize is to go back home in front of their home faithful and play a team that averages 51 points per game. And oh, by the way, you're down your top defensive back in Xavier Scott. So no big deal there. Guys, I just, as much as I still have some questions about USC, I still want to see them be a complete team against a upper echelon team with a pulse. Beating Michigan State was a good step in the right direction. I still kind of have some doubts. I don't know if it's about the offense or the defense. I have some scar tissue with Lincoln Riley, and I think that's absolutely fair. So I'm not going to lock it up. I'm not putting in any of my own currency on this, but USC -7.5. I don't know that there's a reason I could point to take the Illini right now. And, honestly, for Illinois fans, every time I doubt you, you win. So that might be a good thing.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the other side here. I'm going to take Illinois +7.5. I know, and I really can't give you a logical reason either, other than I think they ran into a buzzsaw on Saturday night. I think Indiana is a legit top 10, maybe even a top 5 team in the country if they're playing like they did on Saturday night, and Illinois is much better than they showed. So you're not who you are at your worst. You're not who you are on your best night. I think an average Illinois performance and average USC performance is a pretty close game, and this one's in Champaign. So I'm going to just try to stay above the fray here a little bit. I think Illinois maybe has a little wounded animal syndrome. We'll take Illinois plus 7.5. This is the first time I'm fully buying into the Illini, but I do think they're a better team than they showed last week, and they've shown that this year. So if the turnover luck comes back a little bit, if the run game gets going, it's also USC playing an early morning game, 2 time zones ahead, and that's been a tough spot for them in the past. They finally got their first win in the Central Time Zone a couple weeks ago against Purdue. This is a step up in competition. So, yeah, taking Illinois in the points here.
Yeah, I'm going to take USC to cover the 7.5. I just think you mentioned wounded animal syndrome. I think there just might be a wounded animal right now. Like I just think that after what just happened to them and after what we just saw take place against Indiana, I don't think that Illinois has a whole lot right now. This could be a little bit of a hangover effect where they come in licking their wounds and then maybe they get a little bit blitzed off the top and they find themselves in a hole and it's, deja vu all over again. I think, USC hasn't exactly impressed me this year so far. Didn't exactly put Purdue away. I mean, I know that they won that game. They didn't exactly put them away. Maybe that Purdue team's a little bit better than we thought. They kind of gave Notre Dame a run. I mean, they put up some points against Notre Dame. But, they're playing a little bit better. Their defense is playing a little bit better. It's hard to give them credit on the defensive side of the football, but they are only 55th in points per game allowed. They've held 2 teams under 100 yards rushing. So I kind of like some of the steps that I'm seeing there. I just think they're the better team right now. And I think that they'll be feeling a little bit better coming into this one. The vibes are higher on the USC side. I just think that that's going to translate to a win. So I think they'll win this one pretty good. And Illinois is reeling right now, right? That's just kind of where they are. They're going to have to figure out the backslide. They can fix it against USC. I just don't think that they will.
Well, and one of the indicators of struggle that Illinois has had so far, despite being a Brett Bielema team, they have one of the worst offensive lines in the country at protecting their quarterback. USC, guys, is 3rd in the nation in sacks. They have 16 coming in. So not exactly a get-right spot for the Illini offensive line. Trey, good luck. I have no doubt that they could absolutely cover that spread. They might even win outright, and then all of my trust issues would be validated. So
y'all are trusting USC. Y'all are trusting USC in a weird spot the first time they're playing a legit team this year. So
I need to be super clear. As well. I'm not trusting USC. I'm just refusing to trust Illinois more.
Yeah. Duke minus 4.5. I don't necessarily have a play here. I would love the real Duke to stand up, please, because every time I doubt them, they overperform. Every time I believe in them, well, they have a stinker on the road against Tulane. I would just love for them to be consistent. They looked great against NC State. The defense got turnovers. The offense had big chunk plays. Syracuse is obviously down Air Raid and Jelly. He has the Achilles injury, will be done for the year. So it's Ricky Collins that takes over. I think I probably lean Duke here, but Syracuse looks like a very good team that's really thriving off of being the underdog.
Yeah, I think that in this spot, I'm taking Syracuse mostly just because I watched this team beat Clemson and I know that the Tigers are down, but I can't let my eyes lie to me. Obviously, losing Angeli sucks and I know it's going to hurt them, right? So I get that. But, you get your new guy in and you get him in a week of practice and hopefully he's ready to go for that. I just think there's a lot of options for what this game could look like. I think there's the option of Syracuse is more than just their quarterback. So, the new guy steps up and it turns out they're still a good football team. It could be, maybe Duke's actually just stinky and they're just not very good. There's a lot of options here, and I think there's a lot of wiggle room for Syracuse covering and maybe winning this game. So I'm taking Syracuse in this one just because I can't let my eyes lie to me on this one. I saw a good Syracuse team on the field, and I'm going to choose to believe in them over a Duke team that I haven't been able to figure out so far this season.
Duke did look like they found something last week, albeit against an NC State defense that loves to give up massive plays. Duke loves to give up big plays too. So Syracuse, I think, has been kind of under Fran Brown. They've kind of been quarterback proof almost. They found a way to find a lot of different guys to fill that system. I liked what I saw from Ricky Collins. He's a talented guy, had some pedigree coming in. So yeah, I'm going to take Syracuse and the points at home.
In the afternoon slate, give me your picks on Notre Dame at Arkansas, which I wrote in our notes is a elimination game, right? Because Notre Dame, they're clinging to playoff dreams of winning out. For Arkansas, Sam Pittman's clinging to dreams of being employed in the following week. Notre Dame, 5.5-point favorites on the road. Their offense looks good. The defense just cannot figure it out. They gave up 30 points last week to Purdue. I would not touch this line with a 10-foot pole. I do think Notre Dame wins, but maybe you get the dead cat bounce from Arkansas. I don't know. This is a weird spot for both teams.
I don't love betting on the dead cat bounce because it's so unpredictable. But yeah, I'm really having to talk myself out of Notre Dame having a get right week this week because I think the vibes are just so low in Fayetteville coming off of maybe it was a look ahead spot. Maybe they get to halftime and they're already thinking about Notre Dame last week against Memphis and that jumps up and gets them. But the vibes have to be at an all-time low in Fayetteville right now. And you're getting to this at 11 a.m. It's not a night game where you would circle it and say, yeah, this is a big upset spot, right? But I'm really having to talk myself out of Notre Dame naming their score here because I think Arkansas's defense is really bad and Notre Dame might have a top 5 offense in all of college football, and that's going to travel. So even if this gets shootouty for the first half, kind of like Purdue did last week, I still think Notre Dame pulls away in the second half and wins pretty comfortably.
Yeah, if you're looking for someone to talk you out of it, don't listen to this part because I think Notre Dame wins by like 30. I think this is going to be a huge game for them. I love CJ Carr. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's really impressed me in the early going, and I don't think you can blame either of the losses that they have on their schedule on him. He has been fantastic. Arkansas cannot stop the run. They pretty much just decide to blitz and try to hit the hole really hard, and if you get past them, then oh well, take it to the house. They're giving up an average of 227 rushing yards per game. I think Notre Dame knows what they need to do. I think they understand what is required of them in this game. And also, you're looking at a Notre Dame team that's, both teams are desperate. You're right. Like, it is kind of an elimination game. Notre Dame needs to start proving that they can win these big games. This is one of the only games left on their schedule where you can convince somebody it's a good win, right? Like, you're going to an SEC program's house. You're trying to convince yourself that, okay, on the road, it may be a tougher environment, right? There's not a whole lot of good games left on their schedule for them to make a point. It's got to happen now. The difference between their desperation mode, where they're going to need to put up a bunch of points and look flashy doing it, and Arkansas desperation mode is Arkansas is not a good football team. They're just not a good program. Sam Pittman's not a very good coach in terms of being able to be a head coach. So I don't think that this works out well for Arkansas in a desperation spot. It's Pittman's last stand, and I think it's where he falls, and then it's the return of Bobby Petrino to the head of that program because there have been a lot of rumors about him trying to position himself for interim and stuff like that. And I think when that starts to leak out, it's got to be over. So we can Saturday night begin the time of death announcement on the Arkansas football program under Sam Pittman.
Yeah, get your flower arrangements sent over maybe in advance. Just schedule that. But I think it could be a long day to be a Hogs fan.
I will say, if they find a way to win this one, this could be 6 more years of Pittman because they have stuck by that guy far longer than I think they need to. So we'll just see. If he walks out there and sees the shadow, we'll see what happens.
He is proof that nice guys don't always finish last because, he has stayed there a lot longer than I thought he probably should have been. Trey, you're right. That's a morning game. So, psych. Now, false start. Let's get into the afternoon window. Texas A&M, 6.5-point favorites. They're hosting Auburn. Ohio State goes north to Washington. That line's moved a little bit. It was Ohio State minus 10 on the road. It's moving down in favor of the Huskies.
Opened at 14.5, by the way.
Wow.
It opened at 14.5, yeah.
Okay, well then I'm evidently not on an island up in Seattle. Indiana at Iowa, I believe, is also an afternoon game. Although if I have my time wrong on that, please correct me. Let's get these 3-pack games talked about. A&M, Ohio State, Indiana. Which of those teams do you kind of lean towards more in escaping this week with a win against a tough opponent?
I like A&M at home. I think that it's going to be a different challenge than what Auburn has faced thus far. I think it's a more dynamic offense than Auburn has had to deal with at this point. They're going to have a lot of different weapons to attack that Auburn defense. Could be close for half, but I think A&M probably pulls away in the second half. You have the dynamic receiving duo of Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. Just a different level of athlete that Auburn has had to deal with. Even Oklahoma. I think that we've talked a lot about Oklahoma being very John Mateer dependent, and I think that A&M has more ways to beat Auburn. I like Washington in the points, even down to 8.5. I think that's going to be everybody's sleeping on Washington nationally still, and they haven't really played a big spot where they've gotten a lot of publicity. They've been playing a lot of games that start at like 10:30 Eastern, and so a lot of the country is asleep when they're playing. But if you're up
Brutal
late and
viewing
watching,
windows.
yeah, but if you're up late and watching them, they have been putting on a show, and they have, between their running game and their passing game, it's been a lot of fun to watch. Jamon Williams, Denzel Boston, a great dynamic pass catcher there. I think they're going to give Ohio State a lot of trouble. And I think Indiana, man, the way that Siggs talked today in his press conference was amazing.
Said a lot of things.
He said a lot of things. He took the opportunity to take another shot at Illinois, which was amazing. But I think he's right that Iowa is going to be a step up in competition from what they faced last week. I know, Mitch, you've been on a roller coaster of emotions with Iowa. This is a big opportunity for Sig. He hasn't really gotten a big one on the road yet. I think they win the game, but this is going to be a really close one. And maybe I wouldn't be surprised at all if Iowa covers here.
The Iowa game's interesting, man, because Iowa's entire offense, I watched every snap of that game against Rutgers, and it was incredibly entertaining. Mark Gronowski can throw the football. I just don't want to bet on him doing it because he became the first Iowa quarterback in history, in program history, to have 4 straight games of a rushing touchdown. The guy, when he gets cornered, wants to run. And a lot of the time, it seems like that's kind of Iowa's plan down the goal line. They hand it off, they get down to the goal line or get inside the red zone, and then Gronowski can do the read option. He can run quarterback counter. It's a little bit of Haynes King flavor. Indiana's one of the best run defenses in the country, and I just am struggling to figure how Iowa's offense moves the ball further than 5 yards down the field if Indiana does what they did to Illinois, which was file their taxes in the backfield. So that one makes me a little bit nervous. I would love for Iowa to make a statement here. I would absolutely love for it. They're one of my playoff picks. I don't believe in the offense anymore. I've made that very clear, but I would love if Iowa could find a way to make this one interesting. I think the line is a little bit weird, but I don't know. Indiana just feels like they're a different team right now on a little bit different level.
Yeah, Signetti's going to walk into that stadium and say, "Who's your daddy?" It's what it is right now at this point. Indiana's too freaking good. I think that they shot up a lot of people's rankings for good reason. They have ran for 300 yards in every game so far this season. They're averaging 6.8 per carry on the ground. Even if I believe that Iowa had a real semblance of an offense, they can't keep up with that. And, Trey, you were saying it's going to be he said it was a step up in competition. So I'm like, oh, what? So he only wins by, 40? Like I guess that's what we're at, maybe 30 if it was really, really close. I just don't see any way that this game stays close for very long. I think Indiana's fantastic, and I think that it's a good thing for college football that they're fantastic. I think Ohio State's going to have a tough time getting over that hump. I think if it's down to 8.5, I maybe feel better about that, but I just think it's kind of a weird thing because they've kind of played with their food a little bit. They didn't exactly put Ohio away, so I don't think they're a bad team. I'd certainly like a lot of what we've seen. They just need to come out and start a little bit faster. Tough to do that on the road, so don't necessarily think that they cover that number, but I do think they get out of there with the win. I think the A&M game is a really bad matchup for Auburn. Aggies have better weapons overall than I think Oklahoma has. They have a better run game than Oklahoma has. There's a lot of things that Auburn hasn't had to face when it comes to things that A&M is going to throw at them. And you got to remember, too, this is an Auburn team with a DJ Durkin defense that's going to run 3 guys on the front. If you're telling me that you get to run a little bit of power zone on that and you get to maybe get those safeties and linebackers scooting up just a little bit, and then you can hit a little Casey or Mario over the top. I think it's a beautiful matchup for A&M. My matchup in that one is going to be Singleton and Cam Coleman against Will Lee and Des Ricks, to whom I must make a public apology because I've been overly harsh on Des Ricks, and he is maybe getting a little Jalen Jones treatment, so I may not want to really apologize to him that much. But he has played fantastically this year. I think he's given up like 2 catches for 7 yards to this point. He's incredible. He's matched up against great receivers, and he's done a really, really good job against them so far. He's going to have his hands full, whether it's Coleman or Singleton. He's going to have his hands full in this game. So it's a matchup that I'm watching, but so far I believe that he can hold his own a lot better than happened last year. I don't think you're going to see the same kinds of multiple back-breaking plays where Auburn goes way over the top on A&M again. I don't see it happening. For all that is made of the A&M defense, and there sure are some steps that need to be taken to watch that defense get better, you have to factor in the fact that this is an Auburn team that runs the football and takes shots. If you take one or both of those things away, they just don't know what to do.
I am a little concerned about Auburn's run game. That is the heart and soul of what they want to do. And then, as you mentioned, throw the ball over the top. I think the corners and safeties are better this year for A&M. We've seen that improvement. Still worried about the linebackers, but as far as A&M moving the ball against Auburn, I think the Aggies should be able to get around an elite pass rush. Keldrick Falk is one of the best in the country, but I think A&M doesn't have to rely on just running the ball inside zone in order to beat you. I'm glad you guys spoke up about Washington too, because I've been very, very high on the Huskies. Trey, you and I, when we did our preview, we were singing their praises. I think the nation watches the Huskies give Ohio State a real scare this week. I'm not calling for the outright win, but I think Jed Fish and company keep folks on notice, which would be an exciting development. Let's move to the night slate, shall we? We've got Tennessee on the road at Mississippi State. You got Arizona and Iowa State as well. We've obviously talked about the two biggest games in the night window. Guys, I think Tennessee, as easy as it might be to say, well, going on the road to Starkville, maybe Mississippi State's back. They beat Arizona State. They've looked good. I'm going to go and lean with the Volunteers. I think this is a matchup nightmare for Mississippi State. I think what Joey Aguilar and company can do, they can replicate in any stadium in the country, quite frankly. And Mississippi State's success against Arizona State was honestly built on the fact that Arizona State did not throw the ball well whatsoever. We've talked about Sam Leavitt having those struggles early on. They needed to run the football. Tennessee can do it both. And so if Mississippi State has to kind of pick one to defend, I think the Volunteers are going to be able to get their points going the other way. I think Mississippi State may be better than what we originally thought. Honestly, a lot of their experts thought coming into this season. There's a good chance, but I like Tennessee by 14.
Yeah, I think Tennessee pulls away here. The other thing about Arizona State is they were able to run the ball fairly easily in that second half, and it's what got them. Yeah, it's what got them back into that game. I think Tennessee is going to be able to do that from the word go and kind of control the vibes of this game, kind of control the game script of this game. Mississippi State's probably going to hit a couple big passes over the top, though. I think that's how they're going to get up and get people this year. Blake Shapen, as long as he stays healthy, that offense is going to be scary, and they will hit a few big plays from you, and it might make the game very uncomfortable, especially at home. But yeah, I think Tennessee, they're going to lean on that run game in the second half and pull away.
Yeah, just to say basically a lot of what y'all just said, this will be close. I think this will be a little bit of back and forth, maybe high scoring in the first half where you're just watching a bunch of track meet type plays. But I do think even if it's a little close for comfort, and even if, Tennessee fans at halftime are tweeting out a whole lot about the sky is falling and a little bit of panic because, they might even be down a little bit. I think this is one where the Vols are in just a different class and are going to pull away in the second half. I don't think that Mississippi State can ultimately keep up for a whole thing. Now, I do think Mississippi State's a good team. I think that they're pretty good. I have been ranking them in my All Podcasters poll. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think that they're a good football team, and I think they are going to finish with a couple extra wins over some teams that maybe you didn't expect on the preseason, but I don't think this is one of them. I think Tennessee handles their business.
Guys, Iowa State, they're 4-0. The path to Arlington seems like it might be very open if they just take care of business. And yet over the years, this has been a troublesome spot where it feels like they are the better team. They're at home. They should win this game and just move on to next week. But Arizona's coming in at 3-0, and they've looked a lot better than what a lot of us expected in the preseason as well. We were out on Brett Brennan. We did not believe in this team, certainly not the defense. And yet the Wildcats have found a way to get to 3-0. They've obviously beaten a bad Kansas State team on a Friday night. They get the big boy this time in the Cyclones. I like Iowa State to win, but I am nervously left kind of asking myself what could go wrong here because, oh my goodness, we've seen some weird things in Ames.
Yeah, they go ahead, Garrett.
I was going to say, this is the team maybe in the entire country I feel most comfortable picking to win any particular game and never cover, just because they don't have that pull away killer instinct ability. But I can believe in Rocco Beck finding a way to score a touchdown to put them up by 2, just about any game that they play in. And so this is one where I think, Iowa State's going to find a way to win. I've got complete faith in that. They're going to just find a way to play just the right amount of defense and hit that one big play or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know how you pick them to cover it. What, it's 7.5? That's way too much. I don't understand how they would even win a game by that many points. That they just don't seem like they know how to do that. Maybe they prove me wrong, and maybe they do that, but I don't see that happen.
Both of these teams kind of have their resume built on beating a team whose coach should be fired and is probably going to lose to Scott Frost and UCF this week. So I don't know which one I trust more. If I didn't have Iowa State last year, right? If I didn't have the context of last year, if I didn't have Matt Campbell's track record, I'd be saying we're probably overrating Iowa State just a little bit. Their resume looked good on paper, but now it's starting to show some cracks with what Kansas State and Iowa have looked like outside of those games. So yeah, but I'm going to lean. I actually do think Iowa State kind of pulls away late here. Arizona has looked really good, but this is a different environment. It's a night game in Ames, really spot where Iowa State usually steps up and plays even better. So I actually think Iowa State might be starting to hear some murmurs and wants to make a statement this week.
I think the Iowa State Fair may have just started up, which is, I think, second only to our great state fair here in Texas. But maybe some folks from the desert can get cultured while they're up there too. Have themselves a weekend. Maybe earn yourself an upset. We'll see. All right, guys, let's go up tempo. Butter. Oh yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if they fry everything like we do here, but I'm sure you can get into all kinds of things greasy and caloric, no doubt. Let's crack open the cold ones on Friday night as we start our up-tempo segment here to close out the show. We've got a 3-pack on Friday night. I'm going to a college football watch party on a Friday night. I got invited to this. I was like, now what? What are we on Friday? What are we doing? And then I looked at the schedule and was like, you know what? That's going to be mildly entertaining. I'll be there. TCU at Arizona State, Florida State at Virginia, and Houston at Oregon State. I think a lot of eyes are going to go to TCU at Arizona State, and deservedly so. But guys, I'm looking at Florida State, favored by 7.5 on the road. They're the top scoring offense in the country, but they're taking on a Cavaliers team behind the arm of Chandler Morris, North Texas transfer, that's 11th in the country in scoring offense as well. It's a Friday night. It's a look-ahead spot for the Noles, who have Miami next week. And if you don't believe they aren't already looking ahead, the trash talk that I've heard from both programs has already started to amplify. I'm putting Florida State on upset alert. It's a weird spot. We've got a lot of ingredients. It prevented me from taking Florida State minus the points. I'll put it that way.
It feels like we're due for something weird like that, right? Like we haven't, all eyes are on Saturday night. All eyes are on the big slate on Saturday. And we got this sleepy little one on Friday night. You wrote in the notes, Mitch, Virginia's offense has also been electric this year. They looked really, really good against Stanford, a Stanford team that was fresh off of a win over Boston College. So yeah, Virginia can score some freaking points. I don't think this is going to be comfortable by Florida State by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, give me Virginia to cover the spread and make it very uncomfy on Friday night.
I'm going no shot on that one. I think Florida State is good, man. Like I think that this is a freaking great football team. They play with some attitude. They got something to prove as well. Like if you look back to last year, they're led by their quarterback. He got that chip on his shoulder too. He walked out in the preseason and said like, yeah, we're going to be Bama. They can't hang with us. And they just proved it. Like they just did that. Man, I hope that to all of my Florida State haters out there who just had a bunch of fun last season making fun of them, and believe me, like I made a couple of jokes as well, right? Like we had our tasteful share of fun at Florida State's expense last year. I hope you had fun with that because I think that's over. I think that not only is that over, I think it's a really good team. I just got a feeling about this team. When you give a team like that enough ammunition and you let them get, kind of pissed off enough after an off season of just hearing it, man, I got a feeling about this team. So I don't think Virginia gets close to them. I don't think a lot of teams are going to get close to them, but I guess I'll save that for next week.
TCU looked really good, obviously, in their win over SMU. The offense is explosive. Arizona State crawls out of Waco with a gritty win. I'm worried that Arizona State doesn't have the horses to keep up with some of the more high-powered teams in the Big 12, like we kind of thought they were. I thought the wide receiver core only got better. The running game got deeper, and the running game hasn't necessarily been the issue. Honestly, it's been QB1. The offense just hasn't had that zip that it had last year, and maybe more of the heart and soul was truly Cam Scatterboo, and that was about it. I like TCU in that one. I'm also putting Houston on a mild upset alert. I don't think Houston is going to lose. I think Oregon State is dreadful. They are a terrible football team. But 12.5 points on the road when Houston's also in a look-ahead spot for the Red Raiders next week in what could be a battle of the undefeateds in the Big 12, a spot that nobody really expected Houston to be. I'm just saying, exercise caution up in Corvallis. Some weird things can happen late night in the Pacific Northwest. I think Houston gets out, but 12.5 in this spot feels a little bit big to me.
Mitch, let me help you out with that. Oregon State's really, really bad. Like I said, Florida State was good. Oregon State's bad. They're very bad.
Yeah.
They're 131st in points per game allowed. They've given up almost 600 yards in back-to-back weeks. No, Houston's going to be just fine. I think there's any chance of a look ahead will be mitigated by the fact that Oregon State is just booty butt. They cannot play good football. It's just not something they're going to do. And then, to touch briefly on that TCU game, Hoover can spin the football, and McAllister's a monster out there. If they can not turn the ball over, and Hoover's been doing a pretty good job of not putting it in harm's way, I love the Horned Frogs to win this one.
Major consequential Big 12 game on a Friday night. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Arizona State, I think, is getting slept on a little bit. I think we're throwing them aside a little too early. I was really impressed by them being able to just find a way against a really good Baylor team that was desperate themselves last week in Waco on the road. This is a team that had one bad half in Starkville, and who among us has not seen their team have a bad half in Starkville, Mississippi? So
sometimes you get both bad halves at the same time.
Sometimes you get multiple bad halves in Starkville, and it gets really
I'm
ugly,
actually wondering if I've ever seen a good half from my team in Starkville.
Go watch the 2012 highlights. That was a pretty fun.
That was a while ago.
But yeah, I think we're giving up on them a little bit too soon. I think that they need to make some noise against TCU. They need to find a way. Obviously, they won't be eliminated from Big 12 contention if they lose this one to TCU, but the schedule gets really difficult after this one at home. A lot of people were saying they had a soft schedule in preview season. Now all of a sudden they're playing Houston, who looks really good. They have a lot of other contenders on that schedule as well. Tech's coming to town in a few weeks, so this is almost a must win for them, and I'm really excited to see how they respond.
Trey, I'll give you the first word on a couple games on Saturday that we'll just give our picks very quickly here. Louisville at Pitt. You've got App State at Boise State. Boise State trying to claw back into the playoff picture, perhaps. BYU at Colorado. Nice win for the Cougars going across the country to East Carolina. And then you've got a rivalry that's at least near and dear to some of our hearts, depending on how much college football video game you've played. Maybe you just love some New Mexico football, but the Rio Grande rivalry as well. Which of those kind of tickles your fancy?
Oh, it's got to be Rio Grande. The winner gets all the green chili cheeseburgers from Whataburger that they can eat because that's only on the menu out there for some reason. Anyways, I'm really interested in Louisville and Pitt. And I can't remember which show I was listening to. I think it was listening back to our friends at the Solid Verbal on their recap show. They had some live questions come in, and someone asked, who's the fourth best team in the ACC right now? And kind of by default, which it's kind of a funny question.
The question of our times.
It was a very thought-provoking question because you start thinking, you know the top three, but Louisville's kind of who they settled on as just kind of penciling them in for right now. This is a Pitt team that I don't think was ready for the smoke that they got at West Virginia, but I still think has a lot of talent and is one of the more talented teams in this league. So need them to make a statement at home this week. And I was obviously very high on them in the preseason, but I'm looking for them to make a statement at home this week against Louisville to kind of get back in the good graces of everybody that was high on them this week in the preseason.
Yeah, I need to see that Pitt has that dog in them because my goodness, they got just out physicaled, out schemed, out everything against a bad West Virginia team, a team that Kansas blew the doors off of the following week.
And that could have been, to be fair, that could have been West Virginia just going all out for the one game they won.
I think it was. That was their Super Bowl.
I think that's all it was.
I mean, they lost to Ohio the week before. They knew that they weren't going to be able to keep up with Kansas. I mean, it felt like they cashed in all the chips for their season on this one game. West Virginia might not win another game the rest of the way. I mean, I guess consider that when placing your wagers on lines and outright winners. I'm interested to see if BYU is for real because, my goodness, if the Cougars are, the Big 12 just continues to get more and more interesting by the week. Like if Arizona State loses this weekend, which obviously they have not, there's a chance for them to go make a statement against TCU. But if they back out, Kansas State's already out. Baylor's not as good as we thought they were going to be. Like, I wonder how the pieces in the Big 12 continue to evolve. And we caveated every team preview during the summer with, especially in the Big 12, it's Fury Road. We have no idea how this shakes out. I'm just so glad that it's already week 3 and a lot of our projections we've torn up. I mean, we've just lost champions, we've lost contenders. Up is down, east is west. It's a beautiful conference, and if BYU wants to join that fray, I'm all in.
I love that we're asking this question again this year, right? We're doing it again. We're saying, wait, is BYU actually great? Like, I feel like going into last season, we kind of had, Sataki on the hot seat. It was kind of a bad spot, right? Like, BYU might be kind of the end of the road. They're going to be kind of bad. And here we are, like, they're actually pretty good. And we're asking the question, like, are they real again? You may not be able to answer it this week because Colorado has taken a pretty dramatic step backwards, in my opinion. I don't think they're nearly the team that they were. But I do like BYU in this spot. I think that we'll see more about them throughout the year. One little note on this, LJ Martin does lead the conference in yards per attempt, and Colorado is gettable on the ground. So I do think that this is a very easy to control game for BYU. I think they'll be able to run the football pretty well. But I don't know that we can answer that question just quite yet. I don't think that a win over Colorado will convince me BYU is for real, but it definitely would go a long way and continuing to boost the momentum for that program.
Colorado did look a lot better with Caden Salter back in there. I don't know what
Against
that experiment was down in Houston, but yeah, it was Wyoming. Wyoming's not a great opponent, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado has a little bit of fight in them this week. So, but I think BYU wins ultimately and does cover that spread.
Guys, my one last thing before we get out of here, Louisiana Tech. Hello, Sonny Cumbie and the Bulldogs. It's about time. They are 3-1, going for 4-1, I believe, on the road at UTEP. They're only catching a small number in the Sun Bowl. And while UTEP, I think, has been close to getting a number of wins, they just haven't quite been able to get the picks up and get back in the winner's circle. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs on the road. I think if Louisiana Tech, with their offense and a much better defense than I think most people realize. We actually talked about that in the Conference USA preview. They have an LSU transfer in Kobe Fields who kind of captains that defense from the green dot linebacker position. If Louisiana Tech were to step up and kind of take the vacancy left by Liberty, I think a lot of Conference USA fans would, I don't know if they'd welcome that or not in this last year before they leave for the Sun Belt, but I'll tell you what, the Sun Belt would love to have a La Tech team rounding into form. So interesting storylines, I think, there in Ruston. I like that Sonny Cumbie's finally figuring it out and getting some wins under his belt. So I'll ride with the Bulldogs this week.
I've got one more for y'all. How about Rice going to Navy this week? I think this game might be over in 2 hours with the amount of running that's going to be taking place, the option offenses. Obviously, Navy does.
Spread.
It is.
It's a massive spread, 14.5.
Navy catching 14.5. The nation might not have caught up to Rice actually being decent this year and being a little plucky, but yeah, I mean, Navy's really good. Navy, with all the other teams that have jumped up into the conversation at the top of the American, the Memphises of the world, the UNTs of the world, the teams that we weren't necessarily expecting to be there, Navy's just kind of been cruising along, beating their opponents by multiple scores every week and just casually waiting their turn to steal that spotlight back. I feel like it's a big spot for them, but it could be a massive program building win for Rice if they're able to go on the road and shock the world again like they were last week.
Do you have them covering that spread? Because I was so close to submitting that over to Herc at NCAA Nation for our pick'em, but it's like an oddly specific line, 14.5. It feels like the odds makers are just assuming Navy kind of comfortably keeps Rice at arm's reach.
It's hard because Navy has kind of been right on the borderline all year, right? Like they barely missed the cover against UAB. I think I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, they covered a 13.5 point spread last week against Tulsa, but it wasn't exactly dominating against Tulsa 2 weeks ago, I should say. So it's so hard with the service academies, but I'm going to lean towards Rice covering it just because they do practice against the option every week. And I don't know how far that's going to go, but I do think that it could be something if you're just looking for a tiebreaker there. Probably wouldn't touch it. Probably wouldn't hand it out as a preferred pick with our podcast name attached to it. Yeah. But yeah, I would probably lean Rice.
Yeah. If I got to pick one more thing just to kind of have in my quad box, right, especially in the morning slate, I'm looking at UNT, not because I think that their game against South Alabama is going to be competitive. I think they're going to win that one just fine. But just purely on vibes. I love what's happening around that program right now. If you've been on Twitter, you've probably seen, some of their higher ups going back and forth talking about future of UNT athletics. And I saw people asking questions about like, when are they going to get baseball? And they're talking about how they can make that work. And there's just a lot of excitement around that. And, I've seen a lot of people, and I know a lot of people that have gone to North Texas and haven't necessarily been super excited about the sports side of it, right? And they're still just kind of T-shirt fans of some of the other teams in the state of Texas. But what's happening right now at North Texas with the excitement around that football team is really, really cool. And I'm hoping that the vibes can continue. I'm hoping that they go back out there and sell out that stadium one more time. And I'm hoping that they can keep this going as they get into a little bit more of the meat of their schedule. I'm really excited about this UNT team. I'm hoping big things for them because I think a good UNT would be really fun here in the Metroplex, and I think would add a lot for that community up there in Denton.
South Alabama is not a very good team this year. I hate it. I hate it for Major Applewhite, but they're just kind of stinky this season. 12.5 is the spread. I locked that one up. I'm with you as well. I think North Texas hopefully runs away with that. The Drew Mestamaker legend continues to grow.
I'm hoping to get a whole bunch of cutaways to, 45-yard touchdown bomb and, 78-yard, scamper from a guy that cuts loose. I just want to see big plays, big vibes coming out of UNT because it's just fun. It's just fun for that program.
It's no longer a band school, folks. Let's get serious about the Mean Green. That'll do it for our Week 5 preview. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Please let us know, write in. Let us know which sides of these games you're on. If we missed a game that you're interested in, swipe up on the Spotify app if that's where you're listening. Write us a comment or leave it in the YouTube comments as well. For Trey Reeves and Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Until Saturday night, so long, everybody.